Hello and welcome to Beauty in the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of plastic surgery. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to plastic surgeons to get them more patients and more profits. Now, today's guest is different. They're not surgeons, but they certainly work with surgeons. So my special guests are Mohsen and Marzi Ghoreishi, the managing partners of the Kohan Group and one of the nation's top architectures, designers, and builders of gorgeous cosmetic surgical offices. You really have to check them out. They've been in business for over 20 years now, and their work is spectacular. So we often share the podium at medical conferences. We're on the circuit together, so that's how I've known them for a long time. And it's such a hot topic, especially now with everything that had happened in the hospitals, and doctors just want their own space. They want their own autonomy. They don't want to book surgery through a hospital anymore or surgery center. So I thought that they would be a valuable resource for you. So we're going to talk about that today. So Mohsen and Marzi, welcome to Beauty in the Biz.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the invite. Catherine.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine, for the invite. We are so happy to be here.
Absolutely. So would somebody tell me, where did the name Kohan come from?
I'll take that one. How's that? Kohan is a Persian word, actually. It's a very small word, but it pertains to quite different words in English. Kohan pertains to something that is an old building, an ancient building, an old culture. It could be a way of life from the past. It could be an old building, like I said, but it still is valid, exists, and it's a way of life that people still do. So literally anything that pertains to something that's old and has dignity and everlasting, we consider that to be Kohan. And we figured that would be a great name for an architectural firm where when we create something, it has everlastingness to it. It is done with dignity and something in mind that lasts forever for our clients. And it's a lesson from the past, but still valid today and in the future. So that's why we selected Kohan.
Terrific. Now, before we get into the nitty gritty, what difference does it make to have an okay office versus a gorgeous office? And I will just anecdotally give you my answer. We are both out of San Francisco. I actually left San Francisco. You're still courageous enough to live in the city, but I'm out. I'm in Sausalito. But I used my very first client 23 years ago was a surgeon in the penthouse of the 450 Sutter Street Medical Building. Mm-hmm. And that was prime real estate. And he had gutted it out. It was gorgeous. And when instead of him taking the office with the breathtaking, 360-degree views, he took a different office and it had his coordinator in the cool office with the views. And when you walked in, it had such a psychological effect on people. When the patients would walk in, they were just mesmerized with the views there and how gorgeous it was. And they knew it wasn't going to be cheap. It was so obvious that they're not going to be negotiating with him. This was high-end, high class. It was just beautiful. So, I mean, how much of a difference does that make in the regular world?
I will say something, and Marzi, please add, of course. I think this is similar to if you go to a restaurant and say, what's the difference between a very beautiful restaurant with a great ambiance? Forget the service and the food, just the great ambiance versus something that like you go to a Waffle House. Then, of course, that's the similar answer to that. When a client or customer walks into a 4-star Michelin restaurant with a great ambiance, of course, feels and expects different kind of experience. But if you go walk into Waffle House, I say Waffle House because it's everywhere in the country, then, of course, you expect differently. You expect a different experience, and also you expect to pay differently. So that's pretty much the same similarity, I believe, right, Marzi?
Yes, absolutely. And also I would say, that's the proven fact that in first second, when the patient enters to the office, they pass the judgment when they see the space before even they meet the staff or they meet the doctor. And in this competitive environment for all this cosmetic profession and business, the doctor really needs that wow factor first before meet with the patient to be able to set the relationship with the patient right. And I think that's the biggest tool they can use in their advantage to make sure the psychology of the patient is the right place to be able to start the conversation about how great they are in their work.
Right.
Just to add a little bit, we talked
Mhm.
about the patient. This was patient experience.
Mhm.
But imagine if you put yourself in a box all day, 8, 10 hours a day, and work inside a box. You, me, Marzi, all of us, versus somewhere with a view or somewhere with a great ambiance. What is the difference experience we would have as people who work in that environment? And what kind of production we would have if you would have such an environment?
Absolutely.
So it's not just the patient itself, but also it is us, the providers who work inside that space, our team. I think the psychology of a great space, it impacts on everyone inside of it.
I think it made a big difference with the staff as well, because I was hiring people, and when they walked in, they knew we weren't fooling around. Like, this was a very high-end practice, and he had high standards of excellence, and it showed. That's the secret, though. You've got to be consistent with this. If you're going to have a killer website and then a killer office, but a crappy receptionist, you can't. You've
That's
got to be
true.
consistent. You know,
That's true.
Absolutely,
And
that's
the
true.
doctor may be really good. Like Maz said, the very first 6 seconds, anybody walking that waiting room or that environment, they pass judgment on. And I don't care how good of a surgeon you are, they're done. I mean, before they even meet you, they either like you or dislike you. And then it goes, of course, who is at the kiosk or that front desk if they get up and put a big smile on their face. And of course, that's, and that experience continues on. And but definitely starts with the physical environment as you walk into any space, if you will. It's
Absolutely.
amazing what a space can do for you.
for your psyche.
Yes.
So let's talk about your services, because one thing I didn't understand because we've talked a lot about this on the podcast. So many of the doctors want to build out their own place, and I would say, like, they would say, I don't even know how to get started. Like, do you start with an architect? Do you start with find a good contractor first, who then will find you an architect? Do you who's going to design the thing? Like, like, what, aren't you a full, like, one-stop shop?
Yes, actually, everyone asked that question, and a lot of people stumble around different areas, and then sometimes they take a wrong turn. I think the old school is that you start definitely. Of course, you first have to know you have the money, and you need to have a budget, right? How much are you going to spend? So, who are you going to ask how much you need? I think a lot of people pick up the phone and talk to a contractor, and I have there is lots of pitfall with that, because the contractor will give you what they think that office should be. They don't really dissect and dig in to figure out the realistic budget for what kind of vision you have. So my suggestion would be, if you will, to discuss immediately with an architect. And that's why if you refer to AIA.org, and I recommend every surgeon who's planning to build, go there and study as what the architect does, because most people don't know what an architect does. If they go there at AIA.org and they read, they'll see the architects have something called pre-design and programming, where during these two phases, an architect can help the client, the person who's building, to come up with a realistic budget, understand their vision, and realistically understand how long of building, how long is this building going to last for them, how many square foot is going to be, because the budget, construction cost, all of that relates to, and me going to the bank getting that kind of money relates to this architect trying to figure out the very thing you need to achieve and live with it for the next 20 years.
So
And
you're saying start with the architect, because I think a
Absolutely.
lot of them start with the contractor, quite frankly.
No. That's two different worlds. And the contractors are needed to build it for sure. And a good contractor who is experienced with surgical facility needs to build it. But the contractor does not have those type of expertise and services that an architect provides in order to realistically understand what the client is after.
That's true. Also, I think what is important, just to answer back to your question about the services. So clients, the doctor goes to the contractor because the first question they have is how much it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And that's the determining factor for them to be able to move one step ahead. But I would say before asking that dollar number, I need them to know what scope of work they are entering into that. What is the journey? What is the challenges they may face? And what we are going to provide as an architect, per AIA, as Mohsen said, we are going to walk them through the process of design and construction and occupancy. Then they know what is the roadmap. Then they can ask right question. For example, we provide the programming and design as one scope of work. We provide architectural services. We provide engineering services. Also, we provide the interior design services. We help them also go through the construction. These are the services we provide to be able to answer the question every single doctor has during the process of build out. And for sure, contractor is a big part of that.
Yeah, when you go to contractor and you just pick up the phone and say how much it costs, because everybody's after that cost, like Marzi said. The contractor says, oh, it's going to be about well, these days we've done another cosmetic surgery down the road with 2 ORs, and it costs us $300 square foot. That's it. And the doctor is sitting on this side, the contractor is on that side of the phone, and each one of them have a different vision inside their head what that thing looks like, or what's inside of that surgery center, or what kind of certification that surgery center has, or how long will this surgery center is going to last for this doctor. I mean, it's up to your imagination. So it's just a very immature response to a very difficult question, which really cannot be answered until it's digged in and dissected and figured out before that realistic budget occurs. Because it's just not the construction cost, the bolts and nuts of the building, but also there is so many soft costs. I have a file that I can go through it and I can add those soft costs. Sometimes those soft costs are quite high and can break the bank. And contractors won't talk about that because your question is how much per square foot can you build it, but you didn't ask me what are the soft costs.
I just think it's the service you offer, this all-encompassing service. I think it's so brilliant that one person's responsible for all of this, because it's like having software in our industry. Like a lot of the doctors have 3 or 4 different software applications because they're trying to pull together their lead management process. But God, when one thing breaks, nobody can tell, nobody knows who to call, everyone blames everyone else for it. And if you can put it all under one umbrella, I just think that's less of a headache. Quite frankly.
Actually, this is what architects do for a living, and in us, it's unfortunate. The doctors don't know about it.
Yeah,
they really don't know anything about it. They first thing it comes to their mind is contractors. It's just because the way the world is today. But I suggest definitely, if you really want to do it right the first time, pick up the phone and call someone, an architect that has expertise in surgery centers or whatever the type of building you are building. And if you read on LA.org, all of that is in there, and require all the services that the architect provides. So you have that quarterback handling your project throughout.
But you really need an architect that understands a surgical center, that it needs to be Quad A certified. It can't just be any Joe Schmo. Somebody who really understands this. I've had surgeons who did a build out and they forgot to add another lobby for the surgical center, and they had to literally refit the darn thing. Or they put the HVAC or whatever, they put it on the wrong side of the room and the water flow was somewhere else, and it was like a nightmare. And because nobody knows what they're doing.
It is so costly. If you want to save costs on the stage of design of the process. And we can discuss more in detail on this subject, but these are all the issues that may happen if you want to cut corners and go with the neighbor architect or brother architect or some familiar person that they can do some drawings and you think that you can get it done. But the fact is, no, unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of issues along the road.
If the doctor's question and number one priority is the bottom line, dollars, they have to go to an architect. Any other way, they're going to pay later. That's my recommendation.
Yeah.
Now, whatever your budget ends up being, yes, you have to pay a fee to the architect. It's as if I want to go to a plastic surgeon, I have to go to a plastic surgeon and pay for it. So that's what professionals are for. You have to pay a fee to actually do it right the first time. But if really you are not even looking for patient experience, or you're not looking for something really off the top or whatever, beautiful, you're looking for something really simple, and you want to make it really as affordable as possible, you have to go to an architect.
Hmm.
That's my recommendation.
Yeah. One of the biggest issues is a surgeon goes through this probably once in their lifetime,
Mhm.
and then they're educated, but they went through the ups and downs and the grief of doing it, and now it's just like a one and done kind of thing. So I highly agree getting some expertise involved early on. Yeah.
And I can't tell you how often I have heard, I wish I had done it differently.
Yeah.
Next time I'll call you. And we've had actually referrals from the doctors, clients who didn't go with us. They went with a whole different direction.
Mhm.
And then they send us a referral telling the referring person that go with them first. Instead of, so it's amazing. We get those kind of referrals now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the interesting point, because usually when the doctor wants to establish their practice, if they are young, so I'm sure they have a limited experience about dealing with the different aspects of their business. They are well educated in university and getting degree and a lot of skills to do their surgery. And they tell everybody, oh, I'm opening a practice. And everybody provide the opinion. Okay, no, you don't need architect. You just go to a builder, and then someone from the family member, they're trying to help them to put together the colors. And then maybe someone else getting the plan to the permit. So it's a lot of pieces that is not in hand of professionals. And all of these small pieces can go to a disaster situation, unfortunately. And we've seen that, and we've heard that, and we hear stories about that every day. And we are not happy about things happening to the doctors, but unfortunately, trying to get help from the relatives and people they know a little bit of this and that is not a good thing at all.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I'm curious about. A doctor will have a vision in his or her head, and they're trying to communicate it to you. How in the world do you get from what's in their head to what happens in real life reality? How do you communicate that?
Ever since we established Kohan, which is 20 years and 9 months ago, we try to have a roadmap that is quite different than any other firm I have worked before or Marzi. It is very hard to know what's in the client's head, right? I mean, I'm sure if you want to buy a house, you have a vision that I want a house look like this and that, or I want a house from outside and inside, both, doesn't matter, right? And you even see the furniture in it. You can even feel the house if you want to do a house. It's the same with any building. So we have a process on the website. If you go to the process tab, and it has 4 steps. And one of the most interesting steps is creating a Pinterest page. Pinterest page, I mean, we don't know a lot of these people, and the only window through their mind, through their mind, is by looking at these pictures we ask them to put on Pinterest. What we call is likes and dislikes. And so they may take a picture they like, but they really don't know why they like it. So we take like 20, 30 pictures of likes and dislikes, and we take about 2 to 3 hours just going through each picture, figuring it out. What is it specifically in that picture that triggered the emotions in the client's brains? It's sort of psychology, literally, where you realize, okay, this is why really he or she likes this picture, not because of all of the other stuff in the picture, but because of that little one green plant putting over here on the table or something. Then we cover that plant and say, how do you feel now? And he goes, ooh, that's different now. Okay, well, no, I really don't like it. And the conversation begins. So when you do this with 20, 30 pictures, we go through their head and see the world through their eyes. And that is the time where we know how they see the world and what is it that puts a smile on their face. And that's a pretty interesting process that we really take a lot of time to understand our clients before we even draw the first line.
Exactly. And what also we have, we start the process with this step, so to getting to know the person. But also we have a lot of different steps during the design to make sure we are in line with the clients. Every step we provide with the doctor, so with different options, we check with them, we go back and forth that based on this and that feedback you had, we provide you these presentations because we figured out that these are in line with your vision about the space, how you see the space, and how and what kind of space makes you comfortable and relates with your brand and your services that you're going to provide to your patients. So it's a lot of check and balance during the design as well.
It just seems so, this sounds so challenging. When you're a plastic surgeon and you have a patient bring in a photo of themselves or somebody else and say, this is what I want. Does anyone do that? Does a doctor bring in a photo of their friend's office and say, I want this? Because that would be a whole lot easier than going, let me explain my vision to you. I can't imagine how that translates.
Yeah, it's quite tough, and that's what makes our work quite interesting. Because if you were to design buildings that were all similar, like you've seen cookie cutters before, like have not driven in developments that all the houses look alike. That doesn't take much brain. You do one and you repeat 100 times, and you just change the color. Okay. If you were to do that, it would be a very boring practice. So, and everybody would get something similar. This way, we basically fit the vision to the client's mind.
So actually what we see in architecture field, one thing I just want to add is some of the architects, they establish their own style. And client goes there because they know they do this specific style. But we don't do that. We are so proud of being able to go through the client mind and making sure we can deliver what they love to see and have. And that's why when you go to our website, you see many different look and spaces that they are different, but we can proudly say that they are very successful places for the doctor that they be designed for them.
Basically, if the doctor could have been an architect and a creative person, how would they create their own practice if they were to design it? That's what we like to do for them.
And how much does the patient journey experience fit into this? Because does a doctor know he wants only 2 exam rooms or 4 exam rooms, and he just wants a little reception area because he doesn't plan on keeping people waiting? And does he want a big kitchen or a little kitchen? Does he plan on having a conference center where his staff trainings happen, or is he going to have private events? Who decides all that? Because you have to decide that early on before you even mention anything about price, right?
Again, when you go to the process tab on the website, we have examples and they'll show, look, this is the process. It's a process which has to take place for all of those to be figured out. And that's called programming. And that during the programming process, one thing is to understand client's vision, which is the Pinterest page. The other part is understanding exactly or helping the client to understand what does go inside their building. So the size of the waiting room, or the size of the sterilization, or a clean room or a soil room, all determining factor by how many ORs you have, okay, or what kind of accreditation you're going to get. And we will actually go through that process and help the doctor to figure out the major stuff. And then by default, we tell them what you need to have, how big you may need to have them. And of course, that determines the square footage. And that's oftentimes happens before even we build. We have to do that before we build a building because we don't know really how many square foot we need. So I recommend to figure that out before anything else.
See, that's another really good point. If they don't know how many square feet they need until there's a big discussion about it and you really strategically look at that. And then they have to go find a realtor or something or buy a building. Like a lot of them have already found the space And now they want to retrofit it. Like they're always in different stages depending on how far
Yes.
along they are, how
Yeah.
many people they've talked to, you know.
Well,
Right.
they ask a lot of questions. Like a lot of surgeons do have friends. Let's say they
Yeah.
have two ORs and a quad ASF certified, and they ask their friends how many square foot you got, and say, okay, 5,000 square foot. So that experience is there. So they start going with the realtor and ask for 5,000 square foot, or talk to a contractor, say, okay, can you build me 5,000 square foot with two ORs?
Mhm.
And it happens every day.
Yeah.
It happens every day. And that's fine. We get into the process sometimes, maybe a quarter of the way that they're in it. We get into it, and we help them out. But it would be good to know that first before even you look for it.
And not only for a square foot that they need, also there's a lot of other infrastructure that need to be considered to be in place to be able to deliver, for example, 2-hour surgery. And if really that space has capability of installing the extra stuff we need for a surgery center. And that's why we really recommend all the doctors to also consult with an architect prior to going through to the end part of the lease. Although the space may look so fantastic and very, very attractive, but if they cannot put their generator, if they have issue with OR or discharging patient and this and the other, so that would be a big problem during the construction.
I recommend before they sign the agreement, they have an architect to check it out, because you don't want to push the surgery center into a office building that you like. You got to make sure it fits in there. And like Marzi said, those are very important things. And so what we can do, we can help them with that. If they found a place that they really love, we can check it out. Or an architect should really check it out to tell them, okay, yeah, you know what, doctor, you can have the two ORs. That room can be an OR. That room, we can move the wall and make it an OR. And we see enough infrastructure where we can actually adapt this space to a surgery space.
Gotcha.
Please, before you sign dotted line, that is important.
I don't envy you. I find this to be a monumental project, and you haven't even started yet, you know.
That's right.
Golly. Give me the most common mistakes made that this audience can avoid.
Common mistakes is, I think we touched base on that. One would be not to, well, I walked into a building last week up northeastern portion of our California here. And the doctor had hired the general contractor and a non-licensed general contractor doing the work. And his patient, whom does a lot of work on, and spends a lot of money in her office, is doing his interior design.
Oh, of course. It's either her or the wife. Yeah.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, everyone's an interior designer.
Exactly. So I was like, walked in, and we don't have a licensed contractor. We have a person who's a patient doing interior design, and I just walked out. We were going to get mixed into that, because that from the very get-go, you're asking for disaster. And I am sure they have managed to pay each one of these people in a very low, whatever, by services, or because you don't have license. The point I'm making, that is one big mistake. If you use non-professional people to help you, you can't use your friends, you cannot use your uncle. Those are big mistakes, or sister, to do this and that, because this is not the type of work you want those people to really handle.
That's true. I think one of the other things that we see every day, and that's not good, and it's not pleasant to watch people going through these things. A lot of doctors, they fell into a trap of going with the lowest cost. Although we do believe that we have to save money for our clients, and everybody needs to be budget conscious, but being the less expensive it doesn't mean it's the best. So our clients paid a lot when they went to the cheapest one, which they figured out that they have to pay much more to solve the issue that raises from that decision. So let's do your due diligence, but don't fall in the trap of someone tempting you that, hey, I am the cheapest one, I can do this job for you with that lowest cost possible that may shock you?
Honestly, it's very difficult to assess what an architect does for the doctors, because if you go for liposuction, you say, okay, my stomach is this much, I'm going to do a lipo, or I'm going to do this, and okay, that's it. It's very, very determined what each surgeon does. But an architect can say, okay, I'll do your surgery center for you, and he can prepare drawings, about 8 sheets of drawings, and get a permit for you. And a contractor can take those 8 sheets and build it for you. But the same project can be done by another architect. Instead of 7 sheets of drawings, he'll do 70 sheets of drawings. There is a difference between the two. It's not that one is dying to draw. No, it's just one is trying to do the job right the first time and figure everything out into the detail. So during construction, there are no change orders. There are no time missed because of the change orders. There is no issue during permit process. So the permit issue is issued quite fast. And at the end, you have a great product.
Yes.
And if you're going to bid that project, people don't put their hand in their pocket and come up with a bid. They look at the drawings, because the drawings are so comprehensive and so detailed that anyone could put a price on it, because they know what they're bidding for. They don't have to imagine or assume things that goes into the building, where all of a sudden the beds are so different, far apart from each other. So if the architect they select is the right architect and do a very comprehensive work, that architect should save them a lot of time and money. Time is also money, and get a project done really right. Unfortunately, people oftentimes don't think of that, because they see the fee of an architect really low, but they really don't know what that means. They come say, well, we got this architect is going to do it for, say, this amount, but you are 3 times more expensive. How is that? Is permit. No, that's where they don't really know and cannot assess the difference in work. And that is where I tell our clients, please, let me show you an example of a work. And then when you go through interview with other architects, have a look and see for the same 5,000 square foot, surgery suite, what are the drawings and deliverables are, and then determine if what you really want to do. And also understand and talk to the owner of the surgery center, say, how much is change order do you have? How long did it take for you to go through permit process? How many changes did you have during construction? Because those things happen. When you do something quick and fast and dirty, you leave a lot of things without unanswered, and then you have to pick them up somewhere during construction, which that takes time. That means it elongates the construction time.
Absolutely.
That means money. And nobody really, I hate to see the clients go through that kind of horrible experience, because they just don't know the domino effect.
And also, when it comes to the time of bidding, if they receive the bid, and sometimes, some of the bid, they're low enough to be so attractive. And some of our clients, unfortunately, despite the fact that we asked them not to do that, they went with the lowest price because the contractor, didn't have the experience in surgery center or other things. So they went there with the lowest price, and unfortunately, during the construction, they had to pay much more money they could have saved if they go with the much more qualified contractor. So that's the whole art of gathering the whole team together. And
a lot of the doctors had never heard that term change order until they got into this process. So talk about a change order, because that changes everything.
That's true.
When that change order comes, they are in the middle of construction. They have no way back to get back out, because they can't. It's just more costly to get out of that contract. So they are subject to come up and pay and eat up the time and do it. Those are some of the things we see that it's a mistake that the clients do. And we also have some of our own mistakes that we have done. And one of them is that, like Marzi said, we realized the owner is picking the least expensive contractor whom has never done a surgery suite, whom we realize is not really a good fit and still remain in the contract. So what we do, we realize remaining or keeping ourselves into that contractual agreement is going to have eventually it's going to be a bad product and we're going to get hurt by it as well. So we now have something in our agreement that we actually have the right to get out because we know is not going to happen because we want a project with minimum risk, because any risk that comes upon the client, it is our own risk. And
so what are your top red flags?
Top red flags is like if I see the owner is looking at the bottom line only. Because if a client goes to that surgeon and that client of that surgeon thinks the same way, that surgeon will not do the surgery.
Imagine the patient goes to a doctor and says, do my cheek or my face with the lowest price possible without looking at the, before and after or result of the work.
So that's the biggest red flag. Another red flag is when a client decides to be the contractor or the architect.
Or project manager.
That's the upfront number one red flag, where we recommend if you are going to an architect, trust the architect like when your patient trusts you. When you do a lipo, you put that patient to sleep. That means they're totally vulnerable and trusted you on that table, right? You need to be the same way to an architect. You have to pick somebody that you totally trust and let them do it. Go every day to the project site. Go check things out. You want to change something, talk to the architect. You want to move something, talk to the architect. Do not talk to the contractor. Do not express yourself. Do not manage the project.
Subcontractors. Some of them.
That is number one problem, because the moment client starts engaging with the subcontractors and contractors, that's where everything goes wrong. I suggest that interaction should be upfront with the architect during design process. And when the design process is very comprehensive and you don't leave anything out, you've spent enough time to build the project on paper. Therefore, there is nothing going to be afterthought. Okay, so everything is figured out. You're done. Now it's time for this contractor to build it, and you have your architect as your quarterback during construction, who's watching your back, watching every step this contractor is doing. You need to acquire that service from your architect, by the way, to be involved during construction. But for us, the moment we realize the owner is going to be a project manager or a designer and also help during construction, we're out. We don't take that project. Because if we don't take that project, that should say something to the surgeon. It's like two surgeons want to do one surgery at the same time, and one of them is not really surgeon.
So we have to talk about permits, because it seems to me that's one of the biggest delays. By the way, so when you come on board and you all have figured out a budget, is there wiggle room there, especially for obviously change orders, but the permit situation, the time delays? How do you figure all that out?
Well, everything is somewhat based on, we can control the time that we design the project. That is under our control. Nobody can control permit process. And so we put a timeline together, say, okay, we design it for, let's say, 8 weeks or 2 months or 3 months design time. But then we allocate, let's say, 2 months for permits, depending on what project it is, what complexity it has, what city or county it is. We will put that number according to our experience, okay? And the bed environment and how busy the construction time is. So we will put that assumption in there, is assumed. There is nothing else we can do. And then we assess how much time it takes for back and forth with the county until the permit is ready. So we give a pretty much not a rosy picture, a pretty tough picture to the client.
Right.
And tell them, well, you need to accept this. It's going to take you 2 years. Oh, no. I was told by a local architect it's going to take 3 months. That right there is another red flag.
It's a big red flag.
You know you cannot talk to this client any further. because they are going to hurt themselves like there is no tomorrow. Anybody who says that, they just want to take that project, involve themselves with the project, and after that, it's too late to exit.
And let me tell you one example exactly with regards to that. We had a project, potential project, that they asked us, we want to give you this project, but our condition is you finish and get the permit before December 2020. Exactly that timeline. We looked at the project, we looked at the jurisdiction, and we said to the doctor and landlord that this is not possible, this is not realistic. We can do whatever we can in regards to our part, but we cannot promise you get and obtain the permit, but that day. Imagine what? The project is still in the process. They went to another architect, they signed the project, they signed the contract with another project, with another architect, and they just started all the design phase. The project is still in the process from 2020. And that was a small TI.
Very small project.
Be realistic. That's the whole point. I have a city that they can get back to us in 1 month. I'm working with the city that they haven't issued the first round of comments after 6 months.
So crazy.
We have to have plan B always. Always we have to talk to our clients. At the beginning of the project, we said, let's plan for good situation. Let's plan for the worst scenario ever.
Another red flag is clients, doctors who they're going to buy the tile from their friend who's going to give them a discount tile. They're going to bring an electrician to buy their friend who they're going to buy the light, ceiling lights from their friend over there. And guess what happens? It complicates the project. The bids are going to be higher because the contractor knows he's not going to have a full project with a full profit. So he jacks up the price. And the doctor at the middle of the construction who has been promised to get those lights is not able to get the lights. And the tile is not coming because the right tile is discontinued and now he has to change. It is so bad. It is so bad. So because everyone wants to cut cost, I suggest cut cost, but cut cost within time that you will be spending constructing this project. Because every day you don't have your OR ready for you, that's the amount you have to pay to operate in a hospital.
Well, and often they also have an office that they have to pay for, or they're going to get kicked out in a month, and
exactly
and now they have to go somewhere else and scrambling.
That's exactly.
That's true, and a lot of stress.
We have a lot of stories. We have a lot of stories where, in fact, doctors have done work without permit, and the building was sold to a new management.
No.
The old management was okay with it because the owner was a doctor too, and the owner was agreeing with that. They sold it to a new management. They take over the lease, and the new management realized that thing was done without a permit, which it was against the covenant of the lease agreement. They kicked them out. They had them demo the entire space. It was $800,000 later, after costs for architects, lawyers, demolition of the existing building, and getting something interim to go to the new space. $800,000 later, they went to their new home. So please don't do any work without a permit. Just do it right. Just do it right the first time.
Because you're probably not going to ever do it again. So you might as well do it right and not have to worry about it. I know somebody who had the friend that had the wood planking, like the planking flooring. Yes. And so they did that, like, to save some money. And sure enough, it was very poor quality. So every time the laser fell, or like the laser handle fell, like there'd be a divot in the floor. And it was just a nightmare. Yeah.
Of course. Using the right material, healthcare grade material for these type of environments is an important fact. Because
but how do you know? How do you know when you're just chatting? Like if you're a doctor and they're saying, "Oh yeah, and we have this quality material we're using," how do you know?
Well, who's telling them? Contractor?
Right.
Who's telling them? Are you saying the contractor would say something like that we have quality material? Oh well, you need to trust the professional. So if an architect tells you that and they don't deliver, then they're liable for it. Because for a surgery suite, you have to use, or any medical practice, if you will, healthcare grade material is required. The pathogens, the microbial, bacterial in the air, all of that. I mean, especially post-COVID, people are really conscientious about that. You have to trust the professionals. So if they tell you that, they have to provide that. There is a specifications on the materials, how long they last, what's the warranty, same as the pattern and the color. There are other specifications. If they are sustainable materials, if they're green materials, if what kind of materials are we using? It's from the wood on the cabinets to glue that is in the back of the, if you will, planks, if you will, if you use vinyl planks, or they all have specifications, and you can read it, you can study it. If the architect must submit those to you. So as a contract. So the way it works is, if you have an architect on board, before architect specifies all that in a pretty nice booklet, and that's how the contractor bids the project. But prior to installation, the contractor sent what's called submittal to the architect. So it tells the architect, I am buying this per your specification. Have a look and confirm if I'm buying the right thing. Then the architect looks at his specs, says, oh yes, you're buying the right thing, go buy it. Then he goes and buy it and install it. So there is a check and balance through the entire construction. If you eliminate the architect during construction, you don't know what you're going to get. So the architect must start from conception to occupancy, through occupancy.
I think that is the overall theme here. Start with the architect and use A to Z, the architect, who's going to manage all of this. The surgeon, you stay out of it. You be the surgeon and let them be the project manager. Absolutely. But I would think you're communicating a lot.
Absolutely.
Just to make sure everyone stays on the same page. Boy, I can just see things going sideways halfway through this project, and the doctor saying, that's not what I wanted. I want this instead,
Yes. Absolutely. There's a full communication should be between the architect and, it's like Marzi, of course, like for instance, when we start a project, I do a lot of upfront work with the programming, and we look at operational analysis, how to streamline the operations. We do diagrams, juxtapositions of parts and pieces, and figure out the square footage and all of that. And then I hand it over to Marzi. She's the project architect or principal architect. She puts all of that together, and she comes up with a floor plan. And then during the entire process, we have the client involved, and they have to be involved and approve every step of it. And so they will be very involved through, especially upfront work. And once all the legwork is done and it goes to production, then they don't really have to be involved, because it's just production of those drawings for permit, if you will.
So I would say communication is the key, and documentation. So we are so adamant about documentation through the process of design and construction. And that was an interesting experience that I want to share with you. These documentation, even not with the owner or client, also with other parties like consultants, like landlord, like this and the other, saved our clients a lot of money. We had a project that landlord promised the client to install new HVAC system, and they had it in email. We archived that and we kept it in our server. And a few years later, the client, after we finished the project, they came back to us and they said they had the issue with the landlord about their renewing the lease. And we sent them this previous email, because your landlord promised you have this email. And then they could get what they deserved from the landlord, what has been promised in the lease.
It was about $25,000 simple HVAC system that the landlord originally did not change as they had promised. And now they had asked the tenant to buy a new one, and that was a no-no. So we just had that email kept. And when we sent that, they accepted it. It was done. We are golden.
we put our clients always in the loop that, hey, doctor, we talked to this and this and the other, and that's the result of our conversation. So it's not about only materials or, the look or this and the other. So it's
a lot
everything
more.
related to the project they need to know. And as much as they know more, we are better off.
Like I said, architects should be the quarterback for the project. There are a lot of people involved in design and building a surgery center or medical school. There are a lot of people involved, and there is one client with limited budget and a big dream.
Right.
and somebody gotta be the quarterback, and that's what architects are trained for to do. But unfortunately, the medical world don't use the entire services an architect should provide. Oftentimes, architects are in the background behind the contractors.
All right, with that, we're going to wrap it up. But this is really interesting. I hope everyone's getting a lot out of this. The detail that goes into this, I knew it was a lot, but this is really a lot. So I highly recommend you go to kohaninc.com. You've got to check out their gallery of photos. The designs are just beautiful. The offices are gorgeous. You really do great work. Is there any way they can get a hold of you? What's the easiest way to get a hold of you if they want to chat?
If they go to kohaninc.com, there is a complimentary talk we can have for about 30 minutes. Yes. Or you can call me on my cell phone or Marzi, either or. We will be happy to answer. I always say talent is easy to find, but reliability is hard to acquire. So we are available. So just call us on the cell phone. If you go online, there is our mobile number. Everything is there. You can call us. You can reach us and schedule a time to talk.
Okay, that'll wrap it up for us. Thank you so much for joining me today on Beauty in the Biz. And if you would please subscribe to Beauty in the Biz so you don't miss any episodes coming up. And by the way, I'm now offering my free copy of an 81-page guide I did called Plastic Surgery Marketing, What's Working Now. I decided to give it away for free. It's full of patient attraction strategies, and you can get that at katherinemaley.com/free. And if you've got any other questions for me, you can always DM me on Instagram at Catherine Maley MBA. Thanks so much. We'll talk again soon. The fastest way to success is to model other successful surgeons who have what you want, but you can only see their results, not the path they took to get there. So you continue to jump from one thing to another, hoping to find something that will work for you too. But it rarely does. So try this shortcut instead. It's guaranteed to move you forward. I compiled my intellectual property to grow cosmetic revenues, everything I've gleaned over the years, into one playbook of the most successful practices and what they do to win. Go to cosmeticpracticevault.com and let's grow your cosmetic revenues.